This is the Outliers Edge podcast, where we champion the leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity by taking them to the edge of their comfort zone so that they can lead us to the edge of what's next. I'm your host, Niiamah Ashong. Let's do this. Hello there. Niiamah Ashong here, founder of Outliers Edge, where we champion the leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity. In this moment, I can feel a level of not just excitement, but of appreciation. And I think the technical term for this is warm fuzzies, because I get to spend some time here with Alani, Bankhead. We're going to be in conversation with one another. Alani, it is great to see you. It is absolutely great to see you. How are you today?
Hello, my friend. It is so amazing to see you as well. Thank you for having me. Today I'm feeling a little bit nervous, but I'm excited. So I'm on that sweet spot of, I know this is going to be amazing, but we're going to keep it real. So yes, I'm just really grateful to be here with you and talk about Outliers.
Yeah, so let's do this here. I love that we're going to keep it real. So can we just set a commitment to each other here that we'll do this. So this is the agreement I love to create with you here, right? Well, we're going to keep it real. So to me, that means first and foremost, self checks, right? If we're saying anything and it's just like not real, it sounds good, it sounds polished. We're like, look, the reality is this part sucked, and now it's good, but it sucked. Like, are we good to be in agreement to call ourselves out when we're out of being real?
1000%.
Awesome. And then on the other side here, are we good to call each other in when we hear the other person there's an element of not where for whatever our radar is, it just feels like the realness is just, even if it's just 1% off, we're like, hey, let me just call you in right now. If you're going to be real right now,
oh yeah,
how would you go with that? You go with that?
Oh yes, let's do this.
All right, awesome. So let's start off here. This is how I want to start off here. I want to just speak who you are to me right now, as we get into this here, and then I'm going to give you a chance to speak who you are should you choose to, right? Yeah, I'll speak who you are to me. All right, I'll just, without trying to polish it, I'll just tell you the truth, right? Alani, to me, you are presence in embodied. We met virtually at an experience here where we actually did not cross paths, there was no small groups together, there was no this here. Yep. And yet you stood out, and the standing out for me was around two different elements. The thing about you is that you have an energy that is effervescent. It shines through, and especially now when we're in this digital world, it's something that is sorely needed and deeply felt. You have a way on the screen of 50 different people to shine, to just truly shine. And I remember there was a special guest that came into that thing, and your reactions to it were both priceless, but at the same time, both energy given and space given. It's not, I have a tool, I have a way of being that I call creating space. I'm around a lot of coaches, so there's a lot of holding space, and I get bored in space holding environments. I'm like, if I came in with amount of space and I leave it the same amount of space, I haven't grown. Right. But creating space is something different. And there's something about the way you choose to be that creates space for others to choose to be them. And I don't always experience it. I hear people talk about it. It's a safe space. It's a this. It doesn't need to be articulated with you. It comes with the territory of who you are. So I wanted to start off here and just bring you into this space here and let you know who you are to me. Thank you for being you.
Oh, thank you so much. That means so much because, it's so funny on the theme of Outliers as a whole, that space that you're talking about, we talk about safe spaces all the time, right? Creating safe spaces, people can come be who they are. And even though I have tried to authentically be myself, sometimes I have felt like I have been too bright. And that space is still one of the very few places I've ever been where I felt like I could really just unleash my light completely.
Yeah.
And so I'm just really grateful for that feedback, because that's something that I've been kind of trying to step more into of like, no, I don't need to dampen my light anymore. I need to just be, right, just do my thing and just shine the way that I do. And I do have a lot of facial expressions. You definitely know how I'm feeling all the time. But that place had so much joy and so much energy and fun and people like you. I mean, just like I agree. I was very you jumped out at me as well amongst the hundreds of people that were there. So I'm just really grateful that we've been able to connect since then. And yeah, just share in humanity and celebrate each other. Like, I think you're fabulous and your mission is just like really amazing. And I'm very grateful to get to be sharpened by you and to sharpen you today. So
yeah, it feels good. It feels good to be in that place. There's something you had said that struck me a bit here. It's now kind of passed through me. There it is, the brightness, right? So I have a request here, right? And this is the thing that's fun about, like, I think about like our conversations more like Saturday Night Live than like, video. It's like we might be having a conversation. We might end up doing a dance in the hula, like, who knows?
yeah.
But I love to have that much space in our conversation. The whole premise of this here is like, we can do no wrong. On the other side of that, in order to honor that, we can do no right either. There's no right way to do this.
There you go.
So what I do look for, though, is like to have an experience. And to me, to have an experience, we are actually in an experience. So my request is for today, can you just be the unleashed you? Like, can you shine the brightness like to a 15 and just like I would love to be in that space with you. Like, it's not to say you weren't there, but just in case, like in that moment where it's like, ooh, that might be a bit too unleashed. That one time that it shows up, I want to make sure that I'm a stand for you to be like, go through, we're going in. All right.
Okay. We're unleashed.
All
and
right.
Actually, I set that intention beforehand because I know where your heart is and I know what you're expecting, and the full authenticity is the thing, right? It's the task for the day. So yes, I will go to that scary space. Yes.
All right, cool. Two things here. Firstly, is it that scary for you? Let me just check in.
It is.
All right, awesome. So I wanted to check in on that. We'll play with that. And then the second thing here is what I'm expecting. I'll tell you this right now. I have no expectations. I do like, I come in with a compass, right? I come in with a compass for like, where does the powerful conversation lie in this moment with this current iteration of the two of us? I told you, like, there are conversations that don't go anywhere. This is not going to be one of those. Nope. But there's no expectation as to where it goes. So like, just free yourself of that, and we'll keep playing from there. Sound good to you?
Sounds amazing.
Awesome. So before we got started, you reminded me of something that was really important. So right now, I've been really focused on like the outlier side of things. I'm like, okay, you're like, season, I feel like a new season's coming on. I feel like it's going to be called The Outlier and You. We're going to focus on the outlier part of it, because that excites me. But I recognize it's like a pendulum swing. It's like sometimes you overcorrect as it goes along. And this is not called Outliers, nor is it called Edge. It's called Outliers Edge, right? Surprise, right? But it's actually really important that I bring this in, because I'm actually calibrated myself in this moment. And the calibration here is from the standpoint of, I have a fundamental belief. And my fundamental belief is that, like, most people think that in order to succeed in life, you have to be able to fit in, you have to be able to be as good as everyone else, and maybe just a little bit better. And that's the pathway to success. But I fundamentally believe that it's those people who are different, the people who are changing the norms, that are stretching the norms, that are doing things and creating successes in different ways, not just like because they did more, but maybe they did a whole lot less and got better results. Like, those are the people that are actually like, they have an edge, they have an advantage in the world. And if we can harness that and like uplift and raise that out in the world, then we get to like raise the entire average. We get to lift up humanity. We get to lift up our experiences, because quite frankly, average like is not going to change anything.
Right.
So I really want to I want to bring us into that space here. I feel like a shift in your energy really quickly here. Tell me about what's going on for you, and then we'll continue.
I just find myself really relaxed. Like it was like a sigh, like a release,
Yeah.
because in preparing for our conversation today, just doing like a little bit of like intention setting, right? And like kind of where's my heart? Like, what do I feel like needs to come out? Like, definitely the thing that came out was, in this post-pandemic world, like we all faced a collective mortality. And whether you want to talk about the Great Resignation or like all these major shifts that are happening right now, I think exactly what you said just hits the nail on the head of people. It's not even about being average anymore. It's about people just want to feel more fulfilled and connected to what their life purpose is. But because they've been told since birth what that mission looks like and how to be and how to act and all that stuff, they're so disconnected from it all that exactly what you're saying, like it's hard to be the outlier, right? It's hard to be the first one to blaze the path. And I could talk for days about how difficult it's been to be the first. But I think that's what people are really craving. That's what I'm seeing a lot in my conversations with folks. But people don't know how to do that. And so like, I love the concept of your podcast because it's just like the perfect timing, right?
Yeah.
And it's like the whole world needs it. So.
All right. So let's play with this here. You can talk for days about how difficult it is the difficulties of going first. So we're not going to go there. We're going to go. I would like for you to talk a bit about like the ease that you found in going first. Can you share with me here as I get to see you here? We might come back to that element a bit because I want to keep it real. But like for you in particular, if we're going to have the experience, I want to understand. Like, tell me about times where it has been just like easier for you because you've been first.
Oh gosh, that's been easier. That is so funny. I have never ever thought about that. I think
about it for a second, real quick. I'm going to talk really quickly here. Yeah. Think about it. Go ahead and play through. But like, there's a reason why I asked this question because you were so solid. You're like, oh, I could tell you about all the difficulties. I'm like, all right, but can we also like, do we have the range to talk about all the parts of it? Like, it is ridiculously easy for me to be an outlier at this point because like once I recognized once I recognized and owned that I was an outlier, things became so much easier. We're now having this conversation. I don't need to have any prep. I don't really know. I can just come in this space and I'm like, I will craft this experience into whatever it needs to be or whatever it ends up being, whatever emerges, because I'm not trying to create yet another interview podcast. Like I've been watching like Nardwuar. I'm like, this guy is awesome, right? He's like Nardwuar, the human Soviet, like in Canada. He would like interview people. He does tons of research. He's like, you one time jumped over a plane. So here is like I'm like, I will never do that kind of research. I just don't want that, but like in my mind, in order to really show up, in order to have something of value and so on and so forth, I had this whole story about that. So I've actually found a lot of ease in accepting and bringing in more of the outlierness in me. So I can only imagine that you've also found ease as well. And want to give some space to both why I'm asking and also give you some time to share something that's meaningful for you. Tell me about ease in you as an outlier.
Yeah, that's such an interesting perspective because I actually don't think that procedurally or logistically there's been ease. I feel like the ease comes after I do the thing, like being the first one to do the thing. So as an example, the first thing that kind of comes to my mind is, so my background's in law enforcement. I'm a career special agent and I've been in these just really crazy jobs my whole career. So like I did spy hunting in Asia. I did like human intelligence operations for special ops, targeting like senior terrorist leaders in the Middle East and stuff. I was a senior bodyguard to a top Pentagon official, and I'm like really short. I'm 5'3". I'm very petite. I'm a woman, obviously, and not what you would kind of consider to be a bodyguard. And it's all been a buildup, right? Like life is just this journey of learning. And I think where the ease started coming for me was when I realized the truth of the message and the things that I had to do. Like the unfortunate part of awareness is once you know, you can't go back to unknowing, right? And so knowing the things I had to do, they were just so scary because nobody had ever said these things before. And so I had moved into a position where I was running like statewide child exploitation operations. And I would lead these large scale operations of between 50 to like 100 agents, intel analysts, admin support staff. I mean, there were like really big operations. And I remember the day when I was like, okay, we're going to go into this other jurisdiction. And like, what am I going to say during the operations briefings? And I could just feel my intuition saying, you need to brief that the core value of this operation is love. And I was like, excuse me, what? Like, so of course,
I'm imagining this right now. Like keep going. But the core value of it being love.
Love. Yes. Okay. And I'm like having this internal battle with myself, right? Of I'm not going to stand up in front of 75 FBI agents, Homeland Security, like local police departments, like they'd flown people in from all over the country for this operation. And I was like, I'm not getting up there and talking about love. But I just knew in my gut that this was the thing that needed to be said. And I like was sweating bullets about it for weeks. And I did the operations briefing, and for probably about 3 days before the operation, I wanted to throw up. I wanted to quit. Like I literally was like, I can cancel this. Like it's my operation. I can cancel it. But I knew I had to have that conversation with the teams. And I got up in front of them, and slide 1 is welcome to the operation, right? And slide 2 is these are our core values. And number 1 was love. And I told them, I actually had a quote from the U.S. Marshal from the state of Maryland, and it had to do with an operation that they had done. And part of the quote talks about how these operations are so important. And he talked about his children. And he said, you know, I have children and I recognize that they are me, like my heart walking outside of my body, right? And like, they are the reasons why we do what we do, is to protect these innocent, vulnerable beings that we really love. And so I told the teams, I was like, whether you have children or not, you know, I want you to imagine your niece, your nephew, the kid next door, like whatever, but our communities are hurting. In a lot of ways, the communities feel like law enforcement don't support them. Our children, I mean, it's just been rampant, you know, the trafficking, all these other things. And I told the teams, I was like, if you do not bring your very best, and I define that as whatever your values and gifts are, you lay them in surrender to this mission, and you bring your love. Don't bring me your ego, because ego just stands out. Like, I mean, it just, you can see it coming from a mile away, and it wrecks everything. And I told him, I was like, if you don't bring your love, if you choose ego over love, like I will kick you off the op. I've done it before. I will do it again. And that's not like a power thing. That is the glue that holds us all together. Right. And that was the culture that we started to build that day. And it was so scary, but the ease of it came afterwards, when people came out of the woodworks and they were just like, I forgot why I became law enforcement, right? Like these conversations and this type of work reminds me of why I signed up: to protect life, to protect the vulnerable, to seek justice, to hold perpetrators accountable, to do the right thing, right? And oftentimes you get so sucked into the politics and the policy and all this other stuff, right? And the other thing too is recognizing that I would like secretly coach my team leaders, right? So helping them understand what their values were. And I get that's easy for me, right? So the ease of coaching them through, hey, what does your best look like? And what is the gift that you bring to your communities at the end of the day? And incorporating those into the operations and just seeing them like really unleash their gifts. That is easy, you know? And it's funny because people have tried to replicate the operation that I did, and some really haven't been very successful. And that's not like, oh, I'm so much better than them or anything. But people have asked me, well, why is it that your operation was successful and theirs wasn't? And I tell them, I'm like, it's because of the love. And they're, you know, half the time they're like, are you kidding me? I'm like, no, I'm being dead serious. Like, so if you want to do that, then you need to figure out what your love looks like, and you need to put it in your operations briefing and demand it, right? Like make it part of that culture, and And that is the standard. Don't accept anything less. So I think the ease comes from after, right? Like once you're the first one to do it and you're modeling that, it's easier to do it again. It's easier for other people to do it. It replicates, it multiplies. And that's, I think, where the ease comes in. But beforehand, it's hard. It's scary.
Okay. So I'm so glad you brought this in here on so many different levels. Firstly, like, I have questions. I have curiosity and I have questions, but there's also just a lot of truth in what you said. I'm glad that you stay true with like, look, it is difficult. It is hard. Because normally that's where I would have to go with people. They'd be like, oh, I just woke up one day and I went and I made this speech. I briefed everyone on this, and it was like, boom. And then everyone was like, love was going through the air and so on and so forth. And they don't normally bring up the difficulties. For us, I specifically asked you about the ease just to play a little bit and see like where we can go with it. I have a couple questions. I just need just as I get oriented. In like these mission briefings, are core values like at all? Is that section at all like a common thing that comes up in a mission brief? Or
Absolutely, yeah. Normally you have like your overall mission and then like your core values. And right. Most organizations inherently, what your core values are, but this is a task force concept.
Yes.
So we're bringing anywhere from 5 to 17 law enforcement agencies together, and we have to brief them like, this is what we believe.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So that was a question in my mind. I've actually been in a part of a team experience where like people literally, they're like, we are created, and they were bringing in a bunch of different leaders into a space and like, hey, we need you for this experience, and we're going to meet beforehand. You might think that you're here to do logistically all these other things. We can handle all that on the day of. What we need is for y'all to love each other. So welcome to, they called it the love bubble. And yes, it was very much every time we came in there, it's like, this is the primary purpose. The last, let's say 10% of the conversation was like, and here's what you need to know logistically between now and the next time we talk,
Amazing.
But it's like, yeah. So when you say that, like, I've had an experience of how things shift when you come to that. I know what happens for me as a person when I take an action and it's imbued with love. I'm imagining like putting pamphlets on a chair or knocking on a door. Like the physical act of knocking is taking place, but the way that it's done with love versus not, it changes everything.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So I really want to acknowledge you for like standing in that. I also hear like the elements of like, yeah, like I could tell you about it now because the slide came up and I lived, but like, yes. But like, yeah, but living like leading up to it though, it was nerve-wracking. That's what I'm hearing.
It was horrible. Like, yeah. Horrible. But so it's interesting because I professionally coach around imposter syndrome. And so it was my imposter syndrome just getting louder. Right. And
in which way in this case, like how was your imposter syndrome? Because I think I want to explain, because you had, this was not your first mission that you were leading. It was that. So like, where was the imposter syndrome coming in? Pinpoint that for me.
So pre this operation, things had been successful, but they were like technically successful, right? So like we would get, find X number of kids that were abused, or like identify X number of perpetrators and like arrest them or whatever, and the convictions, and like, that was all good. But when I heard my intuition telling me like, you need to talk about love, I knew that was me leveling up. Like, and so that was, probably a few years ago at this point. But prior to that, so when you think about what's been happening in the justice spaces for the last, like, especially the last 6-7 years with like BLM and everything like that, like, I've always been someone that kind of like straddled two spaces. I've always been kind of a bridge in a lot of ways. And as a law enforcement officer, what hurts my heart in that context is like, oh, there are people in communities that feel like they're not loved and they're not appreciated, like, as humans, right? Like that is just like super wild to me. And I wanted to be part of the solution. And for me, that solution showed up as, you need to talk about love, because technically law enforcement has been doing things the right way, right? Like for the most part. I mean, obviously you have outliers with that too, but most law enforcement officers follow policy, they follow the law, they do the absolute very best that they can. So then why do we still have like all of this conflict, right? And for me, what I think the answer is people aren't bringing their love to the forefront, kind of what you're saying, right? Like, of course, like they love their job, like they sign up to be cops and protect and serve and all these other things. But in the precincts or the offices, like we don't talk about, hey, what does your love look like today? Hey, before you go do that witness interview, like let's get centered and like talk about our love. And I'm not saying that that's what it needs to look like, but tapping into that joy and that purpose. And that is something I think that law enforcement, we need more of. I mean, I think the world needs more of that in general, right? But because this is my field for the last couple of decades, that's what I can relate it to the most. And so in that leveling up process, when I gave that presentation, that was me putting my love out to the world and saying, like, there's a better way of doing things. Like, it's not about numbers. It's not about getting arrests. It's not about budget and funding. It's about how do you best serve your communities? And what does that look like for you? So how do you love your communities? And it showed up differently with each individual, right? Like, and it's funny because you'd have some intel analysts that, I mean, they're intel analysts or little wizards, like I have to say. And when you let them unleash themselves, they make some really magical things happen in the justice spaces. They find victims, like most of the time, they're the ones finding possible victims, and they're just phenomenal. But even little things, well, not even, I don't want to call it little, it's a big thing, but what other people would perceive as little things, right? Like the admin assistant who is just so caring in making sure that every team member has exactly what they need. Like, obviously we would have moments of these really stressful situations when you're trying to catch the guy and you don't know where he is and he's running surveillance detection and whatever. And like a little like Snickers mini would like pop up on my keyboard out of nowhere. And it was that admin assistant knowing like Alani loves Snickers and she's really stressed out right now. And I just want to give her a little piece of love to like fuel her, you know what I mean, for these next 20 minutes or whatever it is. And like, it's a little Snickers, but like I felt it, you know. Same thing with the agency leads that come, and law enforcement's a very type A workspace, obviously. But to have these agency leads come and focus on cooperation and collaboration and leveraging each other's jurisdictions, like part of what made us so successful was we had federal, state, local, and military jurisdictions. So all the jurisdictions you could have were represented. And each one has different tools. They have different advantages and disadvantages. And it was just so amazing to see the ego get dropped. And for an agency to say, hey, we know we can take this case like procedurally, and there's nothing you can say about it, but we know it's in the best interest of the investigation or the victim for you to take that case. And we're going to support you in that, and vice versa, right? So a lot of that would happen. And so that's what I'm saying, like just seeing all of that kind of like unfold, like that's the stuff that I'm talking about. And it's been fun to watching how people, it replicates, right? So when someone feels like they have permission to give their best, not only does it inspire others, but it challenges the ones that are resistant to it. So I've seen agents where, you know, a guy might be like, oh, this is so stupid. Like, I can't believe you're talking about love, right? Whatever. And they kind of do this, like knock them over the head, like, hey man, like these operations are amazing. I've never done anything like this. The results are insane. Like you walk away feeling so good. Like my last 3 operations I did, I had to turn people away. Like I was like, I wish I could take everybody, but, and I'm talking like I had to turn 20, 30, 40 people away because I'm like, I don't have enough work for everybody. I wish I did, you know, but so that's kind of where I'm going with that whole thing.
Yeah, let's break this. Like, I appreciate that. Thank you very much here, because as you're talking, there's multiple levels that are going on. Firstly, it's not, yes, you had to say the core value, one of the core values of this is love, right? But what I'm really hearing here is like, this was actually a leadership jump for you. Like as a leader, you have to like, you're not just going to practically get the missions done. You're like, this is your leadership style. This is the culture that you're creating. This is in everything that happens from this moment on, from the, like basically slide number 2, like we are committed to like approaching this with love. Yes. And what I'm hearing, don't let me put words in your mouth. So like, please, like,
yeah.
But I'm hearing like you had to be such a stand for love there, such that it could permeate to the point where every person, because it feels like every person knew internally or maybe intuitively, and felt not just empowered, but like they felt collectively that like they could do something to bring some element of love to that experience in that moment, to the fact that like you're getting a piece of candy there, but it's not just any candy. It's like what would work for you, and rather than a pat on the back or this and the other, it's like, hey, this is how I'm showing love to you. Like there's a little bit more that's coming. But what I'm hearing from you as you're saying this is that it's not about the speech, it's not about the briefing. It's for you. It's about, this is a new level of leadership, and this is how we're going to lead this project, and this is how I'm going through things going forward.
Exactly.
Make sure I'm capturing you right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Man, that's all. I didn't even really think about that. You articulated it way better than I ever could have. Yes. And that's why it was scary, because I knew I was leveling up in my leadership style. Like I could be a good technical leader, right? Like I could do, this is my perception, right? But all the things they teach you in leadership courses to do, leaders eat last, all that stuff. Like I can do all of those things, but vulnerably showing up and presenting a different way of leading, where it's not just these really kind of concrete, like tactical elements. It's the connecting, it's the intangibles, it's I don't know if it's like the emotion around it, but kind of what we were talking about earlier, right? With in the post-pandemic world, like people want to feel connected to their missions.
Yes.
Like for so long, your bosses have been telling you like, this is your job and this is what you need to do for the company. And if you don't get that done, like bad things are going to happen, right? But when people understand what their truest gifts are and they're able to connect that to their mission, right? So me sitting down with that admin person and saying, when you give me a little Snickers bar, like the joy that I get, for her, like that makes her feel connected. She's not the one putting handcuffs on the bad guys or pulling kids out of abusive situations. But I know like she'd always be like, hey, when's the next op? She was ready to go. Yep. And the same thing goes for our intel analysts. Like there's hierarchy is another big thing, right? Everybody wants to know where they fit on the totem pole. And especially in law enforcement, it's like the investigators, the detectives, the agents are at the top of the food chain, and everybody else just exists to serve them. But really, intel analysts, kind of like I mentioned before, if you let them bring their best, they will elevate your cases to places you could not have imagined. And I'm talking some of the arrests that we did, police officers that had multiple victims for years, serial rapists, convicted sex offenders. I mean, they would find things like we had one guy come in and he was like, oh, there's this car. The license plate doesn't match the vehicle. I think he might be security for a trafficker, but I'm not sure. And like, they weren't going to do anything with it. And I asked for the information and just gave it to the intel analyst, and they blew this. I mean, it was multiple trafficking situations across state lines. They just laid it out. It was this most beautiful, like little product, and you can see the love, you can feel it, right? When they're saying, hey, I found you these amazing leads, and basically your case is kind of done. You have to do a couple of investigative things to confirm all of these things that I found, but watching them lay those gifts out and how the light shines from them when they're able to do that, right? So, in a lot of ways, I'd also brief the importance of the intel analyst, the importance of the admin, because it's not about one being more important than the other. It's about how we function as a unit, as a collaborative, the feedback that we owe each other on, how we can better interact with each other. And that's, I think, what everybody's really craving, right? Is like, where do I fit in? And not necessarily to the hierarchy, but like how how can I create the greatest impact in my space is what people really want to know. So
yeah, like when you said it, like, it's like, where do I fit in? That makes me think about the hierarchy part. But it's like, but what I'm really hearing is like how can I contribute?
yes.
Like how can there's a level of belonging here where it's where there's like where but there's that level that changes. I want to use the word belonging, but I'm like, it's not
Right.
complete yet.
Yeah.
It's more than that. It's like but it's like contribution. And so I know what it is for me. I know why I want to use the word belonging. For me, belonging, when I belong to something, I'm in leadership. You know, I'm like, just get me in. Like this is ours. This is mine. You know, I belong with you here, and so like I show that through leadership. And I feel like you really gave like each person a path to like to contribute in their way. Do you mind if I pull out a couple of things? Is there anything else you want to say real quick on this? Like, is there anything that's blown up? So I want to pull out a couple of things because like part of this conversation is I'm going to be a reflection. I can't help it. I can't help it. It's
Okay.
space with me, right? All right. So there's a number of different things here. One of them, one of the things that really struck me when he said, like, when you let them bring their best, right? When you let them bring their best. And I think that that statement in and of itself is actually a radical statement in the sense of like, it's not when you go and like help them become their best, you know, when you like help them bring, it's like there's no help, there's no help needed, you
Yeah.
know, and there's no transformation needed.
Yeah.
Like they're already at their best. The thing is, if you could just like get out of the way and like grease the lane for that to happen,
Yes.
we good.
Oh my gosh, you are so spot on. And you're cracking me up because you're reminding me of this other Intel analyst so I used to oversee the Air Force's worldwide counterintelligence operations. So when terrorists and spies are trying to steal like our technologies, our secret sauce, right? And I had a team of 8 analysts. And one of them was this quiet guy. I mean, like barely spoke. You know, most of the agents probably thought he was kind of weird. And I'd given a similar directive when we first started working together. I'm like, hey, look, like you guys are some magical beings and I can't do what you do, but our job is to support the field and getting these cases resolved. And so whatever ideas you have, let's start from scratch. And I don't care how crazy it is, like pitch it. And this guy comes to my cubicle one day and he's like, hi, so I came up with this product. And it was literally, I can't give too much of the details away, but it was something like target X of a certain technology is going to be in these geographical locations, and there are these certain events happening, and these are the time frames. And I broke it down by unit, by country, I mean, he could sort it in all these different ways. And it basically made it super easy for the agents to find leads. And it was like a silver platter operations proposal. And when I tell you, it's been almost more than 10 years since I had that job. Yeah. I still run into agents that are like, yo, you remember that product you guys did? Like, it totally helped us crack this case. Or they'll come up to me and say, oh my gosh, you're Alani. I'm like, hi, yeah. And when they introduce themselves, I'm like, I'm so sorry, I don't remember who you are. And they're like, you guys helped us with this case because that one product, it was so amazing and it just like blew everything up. And I still get feedback like that every once in a while. And I always tell them, I'm like, it was the Intel analyst. Like I didn't have anything to do with that, you know? And that was, I think, the first time I really realized exactly what you're saying of it's not a process of leading them there. It's not a process of making them do it. It's literally just a process of, do you trust yourself enough to know what the right next step is? And are you courageous enough to unload that into the world? Because it's scary. That's the other thing too. Like when I can do all the work to help them understand their values, but then when they have their moment of, oh, this is what I need to do to support the mission, this is scary. That's the next challenge, right? Is how do you courageously present those gifts? Because people can laugh at it. It could fail. But getting them to that place where they're able to do that on their own. But when they do, oh my goodness, it is just the best. So.
Oh, this is So there's something here where I'm like, your understanding of leadership and culture is phenomenal, right? And I say this like I spent years, my whole background's just been in like that was rewards work. You mentioned about like collective mortality. I was like, all of a sudden, the mortality tables came in my mind from the actuary world, over to like just being in HR and learning and development and client and employee experience. And we would say to people, they're like, oh, we need to change our culture. We need to do this one thing. All right. And on our team, we had this internal thing of we're just like you want to change culture. It's literally all the things. Like everything is the culture. So down to and when I hear you speak, I'm like, oh, you get it. You understand how every person, every interaction, there's all these different examples and micro moments that actually form the culture. Every once in a while, you're going to come in and you're going to brief them and say, this is the direction, right? That's one thing. Then it's how do you show up with them in conversation? I actually get really curious here around like, what are some of the things you did in between to actually like foster that experience? So I'm hearing I'm hearing different conversations that you had with different individuals. And you're like, hey, by the way, when you give this candy, like that's you showing love here. Were you organizing? Were there other things that you did? Did you have like conversations? Like I'm like, were there trainings on this stuff here? Really curious about like just like how far did you go with this? Like that's what I want to know.
That is a really good question. How far did I go with it? Oh my goodness. Well, I feel like
It's been a while. So I get
yeah,
that, but like,
yeah,
and maybe if it helps, like that to me seems like a really bright star along an entire journey of like having bright moments, right? So
yeah,
you may not need to go back to that experience, but like
for sure.
just share with me some of like the things that when you're creating a culture, right? And you're in a culture where people like are allowed and to just bring their best. Like,
Yeah.
what are some of the things that you do that like either some of the things that are standard for you or off the wall? Like, I just want to just get some ideas from you on this here because it's just like I'm like, this is great. She just does it naturally. I don't know if she's like actively doing it, but she's like, oh, this is what's necessary. So I'm just really curious.
So I have to give kudos to my Air Force leadership training, which
Yeah.
is world class. I mean, DoD leadership training has always been just amazing. And so there's this progression, right? So when you're like a lieutenant, captain, and then there's like major lieutenant colonel one, and then like a full birds 06 one that you go to. And the same thing on the enlisted side. And I remember being like baby lieutenant and they're talking about grand strategies. And, I'm like, I'm just a technician. Like, I don't need to know about what the Joint Chiefs are like. I was just not there. Right. But it did plant the seed of, no, there's an overarching strategy. And you're like this little person down here. And you need to make sure that what you're doing is connecting to that overall mission. Right. And I think I carried that with me every step of that leadership training. And now that I'm a lieutenant colonel now, so I'm towards the end of my career cycle with the military, but I now see as the strategist, right, having worked at those headquarters elements, overseeing worldwide cases, like, oh, I totally see now how that tactical goal, like those individual tactical goals feed the big strategy. And so first I have to decide what is my strategy, what is the thing I want to achieve. And in the case of this particular operation, it was obviously like serve the communities by seeking justice, by holding perpetrators accountable, finding victims, getting them restorative services, those kinds of things. But my secondary goal that nobody knew about was I want people to walk away from working these operations, understanding their purpose and having more clarity around what it is they're put on this earth to do and feeling empowered to be able to do that, like creating those safe spaces for them to be able to explore what does that look like, and giving them permission to mess up because we all mess up on that journey to figuring out who we are. And so, yeah, certainly it was like, I'm a grassroots girl. So everything is one person at a time, right? Whoever's in front of me, like, I'm going to try to serve them as powerfully as I can. A lot of times I miss the mark, I'm not going to lie. But so there are those conversations. There were also group events. So collaboration for me that's one of my top 5 values. I don't understand people that don't want to be collaborative. I'm like, do you not understand that things get done faster, more efficiently, cheaper, like it's more fun? I mean, why would you not want to do that? Right. And even if you're like an introvert, you can still do that within a collaborative space. And so I would do group events as often as I could. So post-operation, we would have, it was like a debriefing, but we would like cook out. And, if people could, if they were off duty, they'd like, have some beer or whatever. And it would be like a little bit more of a social event. And that way, because there's something magical about breaking bread. And this is something I learned from my informant running days, right? So when I had sources, whether they were drug sources or terrorism sources, there's just something about sitting with someone and eating food and drinking that like it bonds you. I can't describe it. And so definitely that food and that drink was a really important part of trying to build those relationships and that culture.
So let's do this here. I'm going to pause for a bit, right? Because like there's a couple of different things that I'm hearing from you, right? What I'm hearing is you understand, like, you use the resources that are available. So it's like, all right, like the food, the drink, we're breaking things in here, right? So you're using the resources that are available. 2, you're building upon, like you understand, you're building upon the training that you receive, that you go for. So everything continues to grow with it, while at the same time, like never really losing the big picture. There's a level of alignment where and I think this is when I hear the candy example, I really am just like, kudos to like the way that you lead, right? Because like to be able to like connect the dots, I make it look like a straight line right now in here, but it's like really this constellation that all of a sudden came together, and it's like, well, if that star over there isn't shining, then this we can't connect the dots for this constellation to make sense. 100%. And you're that star. So like we just need you to shine. And if this is how you do it, yeah, go ahead. What's coming through you?
That just makes me uncomfortable. Like, oh, you're the star of it. It's just like, oh no, like it goes back to that the brightness, right? The shining, like, because you're literally using a star metaphor, and I'm still uncomfortable with that, but I'm working on it. So.
Okay, wait. So let's stay there. I actually was speaking about like whoever that random person. I was like role model, like I was role playing. That's where it was. Right. But the fact that you heard it as like you, I feel like we have time. Let's go there. All right.
Okay.
So like now I want to say it to you. I'm actually going to say it right now.
Yes.
Alani, you're the star. Not only are you a star, you are a supernova, right? Take that in. Yeah. Take that in here. My question for you, and this is like, let's play a little bit in this space here. We talked about like the edge part. Like I got really curious about this because I'm like, I just got curious, and there was some wonderful things in here around leadership and just seeing you, really like I get a lot of things around you there. And we also said we're going to be on the edge. And so there's a part of this where I'm like, this is a story that I think you know how to be in this. Like that's you, right?
Yep.
Let's talk here about like the shining, right? I'm curious for like what you are creating now. Where is it helpful for you? Where is a place that is missing the supernova element of you? And if you're brighter than a supernova, like get me right quick, like, but where's the thing that you're creating, for the thing that you're like, you stand for right now? Where is the supernova like most needed, required, or missing?
Yeah, I think it's around that original message, right? Of like what people are really seeking in the post-pandemic season is how to feel connected, right? So the message that I need to put out there is your answer, the thing that you're seeking actually is the love, right? How do I receive the love? How do I put the love out there? And in a lot of ways, I feel called to continue helping the justice system do that. I mean, I do that in a broader scale with my clients, right? But law enforcement especially is something I'm like, we've done it, we've done it. And I've seen little pockets of other places where it's been done as well. But we need more of it. And I'm an idealist. So when I think about, okay, I've got my consulting business and I can do business with the federal government now, I can bid on contracts, and like, this is the change that I want to be. This is my edge, right? Of like coming in and rather than doing some technical training, being like, oh, let's talk about intuition and love and like, right, all of these things. And I just know the resistance that's coming my way because I've already experienced it. I just did a little bit of time with a law enforcement agency a few months ago. And oh my goodness, like after 30 days, I was so worn down and frustrated and degraded because they just weren't even open to it. I mean, they were so frustrated in their workspaces. And to be fair, I talked a little bit about our communities, being scared of law enforcement or feeling like they're not protected or safe with them. Law enforcement is really hurting too. I mean, they feel like, considering that most law enforcement officers, like I said, like really do bring their heart and soul and do their very best, like everything that's just happening is hurtful to them as well. And so, of course, when you come in with like, well, maybe you need to change your approach, for them, they're like, I'm doing my very best. And you don't like it, you can come do it yourself, kind of thing. And so just trying to be that bridge, right, of compassion, of just helping people see each other's sides. But so yeah, I think where I'm not shining as brightly as I really want to is in maybe the belief that like the change can happen because there's so much change that needs to happen. Whew.
Yeah. Okay. Let's stay with this for a little bit. Are you good to go to the top of the hour?
Yes.
Okay. So I will share, like, I'm going to play on my edge here. Right. And earlier in this conversation, you're like, yes, what I do is like, I'm an imposter syndrome coach. I think you actually said like those 3 words in that order. Right. Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest, for me, I was like, oh, okay. From you, I was like, oh, okay. Right. Yeah, really. Like I'll be really honest with you here, where I'm like, yeah, of course you can do imposter syndrome, and but like, there's so much more to you than like, I'll probably tell you, I will never, ever introduce you as an imposter syndrome coach. I will never, like, if I'm going out into the world and I'm talking to people, I am not going to like, it's not the place that like, there's some light there. Yes. Yeah. But like, I'm not going to confuse a fire with a supernova. Like they're 2 completely different things.
That is so interesting. So I'm curious now, like, what would you introduce me as?
That's a good question. Now, so that like I already came in and said who you are to me, right? Yeah, I like, I don't know if I have. Let me see if I can be in this. Look at you here. All right. I don't know if I will have a specific way of actually saying it, but what I would say is something along the lines of this. Like, hey, Michelle, I really need to connect you with someone who is just an absolute, like, she understands culture and leadership to an extent that like very few people really both get, but are able to actually be able to implement. The thing is, like, she's an expert, especially when it comes to like law enforcement. She understands the important role that law enforcement is playing right now. It's like it's in more conversations than you would expect it to be, and it's not going away. And she has whether she's coaching, whether she's consulting, whether she's advising, whether she's leading leading teams on it, leading operations, she has a way to like bring people together around not just the actions, but how it gets done, like the intangibles behind it all, such that what's playing out for me. I just want to make sure I'm not like overly like overdoing it. It's really simple to me. I feel like the simplicity behind this here is that like there's a part of me that's like, just be out with your law enforcement peeps right now and change the entire culture of how law enforcement like sees themselves and sees like and their relationship to themselves, the relationship to their communities, and to work with different people to like upgrade and uplift the culture so that they're each, I mean, the idea is bringing tears to the back of my eyes of like how transformed like a person's experience. I'm a Black man who grew up in America. If I came up and I knew that someone in law enforcement like was approaching it with love, not with what I believe that they're approaching it, but like they were approaching it with love, or not, maybe not even love, but they were so connected to their higher mission that was beyond just like what they were told, but like the thing that they knew inside of them to be true,
right,
and honored that.
yes,
I could feel like they can honor me. I can feel
yeah.
it.
Oh, that's like you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
That's it.
So in this moment, am I able to say it or not? I'll give you some things in here, but it's like what I needed to say for me on the edges. I'm like, go play the game that like you're really here to play, right? If imposter syndrome comes up, great. That's a class of yours along the way. It's, you can add it onto the list of how this all comes together. But you have, and the thing about this too is that it's natural. It is the air that you breathe. As we were talking here, you're like, and then this happened, and this happened. And I like, in my mind, I'm like, that would be a movie. That would be a movie. That would be a movie, you know? And you're like, and then on Tuesday, this took place, you know? And like, there's an element of this here that if you, and we can have other conversations about it, but if you're willing to like really step into this here, there's like an Alani sized like hole that is just like waiting for you to like dance into.
Yeah.
Right up. Like, I'll pause there right now.
Yeah.
It's my truth.
Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. And, you know, again, in prepping for this, leaning into the edge, the discomfort, right? The excite, like, thank you so much for just speaking your truth and what's on your heart, because this is the type of dialogue I think that is just so desperately needed more. And, you know, just specifically talking to law enforcement and like BLM spaces, right? Of like the solution's there. It's just bring your love, whatever that looks like, and put that out there, right? And it's going to connect, right? You don't even have to say the words, I think is what I'm really hearing you say, is it can be felt. And that I think
needs to be felt.
Right.
Like this is a safe space. Hell no, it is not a safe space.
Yeah.
Just because you have declared it to be a safe space does not make it a safe. That is not what it does, right? And that's why I was asking, what are the things that you did? Because I wanted to like, I wanted to pull out from you and make sure that you saw like, here goes all the various elements that you did or that you contributed to, like that maybe consciously or unconsciously were all shifting and telling people like, it's safe here.
Yeah.
It's safe. Hey, by the way, like this is how we do things here. You belong, but like don't be playing that game. Like the game that we're playing here is not the game that most other people play. If you want points, like this is how we do it, you know?
Right.
And so like so there's an element of that really plays out. And like this is some of the most important work of our time right now.
Yeah.
And like I know other people in law enforcement. I don't know other people in law enforcement who can actually handle that mantle. Not to say it's going to be easy. I don't like, I will not play that game with you on this. Right. But I know you can do difficult things.
Yes. Thank you so much. You know, I didn't realize that this was going to happen today, but it's exactly what I needed to hear. So thank you so much for speaking the truth with a capital T. And, wow, I'm speechless. It's rare.
I understand. I understand where it's coming from. So let's do this. We'll close in here today. It's not the end of our conversation, but it's the end of this conversation.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. I
appreciate you. I respect you. Shine. Right. Like, and yeah, we'll continue on from there. If anyone wanted to continue the conversation with you, like there's gonna be people who like want to keep the conversation going. Where can they best reach you?
So my website is www.mightysparrowcoaching.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. Alani Bankhead or Mighty Sparrow Coaching has its own page as well. I'm always posting stuff on there. Instagram, Facebook, we have as well. But yeah.
Okay. And that's Alani with an I, Alani.
Alani. Last name is Bankhead.
Yeah. If for anyone that's watching this or listening to this later, if your courageous moment is just to reach out, my invitation, this is a direct, like, open thing, like, send the message. All right. We'll take it from here. Be well. And until the next time we talk, you got this and we got you. Journey on.
We're just getting started. Take 10 seconds to think about your greatest insight from today's conversation. And if you're ready to go and bring this to a deeper, more applicable level for you, come and join us in an upcoming masterclass. Go to outliersedge.com/masterclass to be coached live and to bring your aspirations, your goals, and your challenges and have them handled in real time. This is high flame, high impact, high transformation. Go to outliersedge.com/masterclass and come experience your next level of leadership.